very quickly with the UK and talk and see how we go then through Europe and how it affects our conversions when it comes to Israel, or how Israel treats our conversions. And then we will go to Russia. And when it comes to the UK, I think we've been exceptionally lucky. And we've been exceptionally lucky, as all progressive movements around the world, as our conversions are recognized by the State of Israel. Our conversions are recognized by, according to the law of return, and all people who go through the progressive conversions will be recognized when it comes to making Aliyah or becoming a member of another progressive community. However, our conversions are not recognized by the Orthodox Beit Din. And that obviously creates a problem for people who move to Israel. When people go to Israel, if they want to marry there, they unfortunately will have to go through the Orthodox conversion. And that's obviously a tension and a bit of a challenge. I think overall, we are very lucky in the UK because we're quite relaxed about whether our conversions are recognized by the Orthodox Judaism or not. We obviously would like to be equal, but we got now to the point when we're so self-contained that we're happy within our own little world. And we have hundreds of people converting every year, people who choose to be Jewish. And we make it really clear when people convert that it's a particular type of conversion, not instead of becoming Orthodox and making it very complicated to become Orthodox, but that's for someone who wants to be a progressive Jew. And the person who's converting into progressive Judaism. And we are very proud to be progressive, liberal, or Reformed Jews. We are very supportive of each other conversions, and there are different stages of conversion. So the stages of conversion in the UK include, they are coming to the synagogue, being introduced to the community, attending the services. Then the rabbi has an interview, and the rabbi admits the person on the course. The course length is different, but overall, it takes 1 year to be on the course and attend to all the services. Then after that, our people have to write 2 essays. The first essay, why I want to be Jewish, and the second essay of a particular topic of research on of their interest on the Jewish, obviously within a Jewish subject. And after that, when it's all completed, a candidate is presented before Beit Din. Overall, the rabbis look at person's commitment to liberal Judaism or Reformed Judaism, progressive Judaism, and its values, to being Jewish and living Jewish life, depending on the personal understanding of that person, what Jewish lifestyle for them particularly works or is. And then we have a very special big ceremony of admitting a Jew by choice or Jews by choice into our congregation. For us, it's a big and a wonderful opportunity, because I always say, who wants to be Jewish in the modern world? And if people choose to be Jewish, or the majority of people actually, they reconnect with their Jewish roots. Often it's people who found out that their ancestors, grandparents often Jewish or were Jewish, and they feel that pull towards that part of their identity, towards part of their history, and they sort of reconnect to their roots. And it's always wonderful. It's always very special to put their soul into their ancestral home, or to where they feel they belong. And then after that celebration, a member becomes a full member of our community, of the formal conversion course, and we celebrate that person's connection to our community. So that's how it happens in the UK. And I will ask Rabbi David to tell us what's actually happening in Europe and Czech Republic in particular.
Sure. First of all, I want to tell how grateful I am to be here with you. And I see that a lot of new people, newly coming people joined. And I also see two of my colleagues. One of them is Rabbi Anita Kantor from Hungary, and my colleague from Beit Din who is with us. And also I saw Rabbi Isaac Osvestad from Schleswig-Holstein in Germany. So it's amazing that they are here, and I hope that they will be able in the discussion then to share their perspectives with us. I want to say that there is, of course, a very similar situation to the UK. In continental Europe, we also have the structure of Batei Din in the UK. There are also Batei Din of liberal movement and also of reform movement. That's what I understand how it's happening. In continental Europe, there are various Batei Din based on the country. So, for example, there is a special Beit Din which serves Germany, which is the Allgemeine Rabbinerkonferenz, the General Conference of Rabbis. Then there is also a special Beit Din which operates in Austria and German-speaking Switzerland. Then there is also Beit Din which serves in Belgium, Luxembourg, and also other countries as far as I'm concerned, and of course Netherlands and France. For those countries which don't have any regional Beit Din, there is a European Beit Din which has its main office in London. And for many years in the Czech Republic, the European Beit Din was actually active and helped many people with their status recognitions or conversions. But however, in the beginning of this year, and this was basically followed by discussions which we made among my colleagues from other Central European countries, apart from the Czech Republic, it was Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia. We really decided that we have to operate locally, that we have to create some kind of local initiative for that. And that's why we were we were in discussions with European Union for Progressive Judaism and also with European Assembly of Rabbis, UPJ Rabbinic Assembly. And in the end, on the 1st of January of this year, we established the so-called Central European Beit Din, which operates in four, they are called Visegrad countries. Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and also Poland. We were very glad and very honored in Etzheim in Prague to have the office, or to host the office of the Beit Din in our synagogue. And I'm really glad to serve as the convener, which is the person who looks after um, that everything is fine and all applications are submitted and so on. Let's say, to speak about main challenges. Now I will speak mainly about Czech Republic because I'm not so sure about the other countries, but I guess that's quite similar. We haven't actually met yet as a Beit Din together because of the whole COVID crisis. So we have many candidates waiting so that they can come and they can have their Jewish status confirmed. And unfortunately, it's not possible yet to meet. So we hope to do it in the autumn. Well, the main challenges are, as Rabbi Tanya already mentioned, probably the cases of people whose ancestors were Jewish and they are coming back, they are finding their way back. It can be people who found it out or who just recently, it happens to me very often that somebody comes to the synagogue and says, look, I found out that my grandmother or my grandfather were Jewish. I would like to do something about it. And I always tell, okay, come be in the synagogue, join us for the services. Let's see if it speaks to you, and then we will talk. And exactly as Rabbi Tanya explained, that person would usually give us some kind of letter explaining what actually is behind the motivation and so on. So that would be one of the cases. And the other, of course, can be candidates for conversion who don't have any Jewish connection, who just find Judaism interesting for them and their families, and they are also joining our services. Sometimes we also have those cases. However, I mean, the main issue for us is really to recognize and to support people on their way to Jewish identity, which is sometimes for people who, for example, families were Jewish, and sometimes they have such a kind of feeling that there would be such a long and complicated thing, and they are many times afraid. So one of our tasks is really to calm them down, to show them that this process is transparent, that there are steps, on it, and there is a clear list of questions which they can learn, and we will talk about it and so on. So I mean, this is one of the very important issues for us. We are also very happy to cooperate as team of the rabbis in the Beit Din. So our questions are not just the questions of conversions or individual cases of conversions or status recognitions, but we also very much, are into spending time together, discussing, global issues and so on. So I think this is one of the, also regarding the conversion, this is one of the best, also uses of Beit Din itself. And we, of course, also try to have exchange with other Batei Din all around the world, other progressive institutions and so on, which I find very important. In the Czech Republic, I am sure that we will be able to get to more of that in the discussion. I just wanted to say that our conversions, progressive conversions, are actually recognized by almost all Jewish communities, even those which do not define themselves as progressive, which is quite interesting development. So they will accept our people for the membership, and the question is, of course, if they accept them also for the matters of being counted in the minyan and being called to the Torah for this kind of membership, that we are still sometimes we don't know sometimes how it actually is approached, but most of the communities would accept them for that membership. It's also connected to the fact that Jewish communities in the Czech Republic accept the members according to the law of return. So everyone who has a Jewish grandmother or grandfather, at least one, can be accepted as a full member of the Jewish community. Now, this, of course, has something to do with the Aliyah Laws. That we know that the law about Aliyah was accepted in Israel in 1950, and then it was expanded in 1970 to not just people who are, understood as Jews themselves, but also the law clearly says their partners and their children and grandchildren, which basically defines that who is eligible, so the grandchild and so on. What I wanted to say, the last point, which I find very important, recent development, is that in spite of the fact that Israel accepted our candidates who were converted abroad, or whose conversion was confirmed abroad, which means, for example, in the UK and in the Czech Republic and in whatever places, it was still not accepted for those whose conversion was done via a Beit Din in Israel. So it was quite a strange situation, which made the whole thing very complicated, because if we imagine that somebody comes to Israel, let's say, and finds it interesting to become Jewish, after that, it's not possible to do this conversion via the law. It was not possible to do this conversion via the local institutions. So it was quite an obstacle, I would say. But the High Court of Justice, actually on Monday, the 1st of March of this year, which is very recent, I would say, ruled that even the people who convert to Judaism in Israel through reform and conservative movements, so both of them, must be, or progressive movements, must be recognized as Jews for the purpose of the law of return. And they are also entitled to Israeli citizenship. And if we imagine the consequences of this decision, So before that, there was the quite long monopoly of the orthodoxy on officially recognized conversions in Israel. And basically, the most analysis of this situation tell us that this shatters this monopoly. And it's what is one more interesting point about it, that this application or petition supporting this recognition was actually submitted already in 2005. So it took so many years, more than 15 years, to the High Court to decide, which tells us, I would say, two things. It was a quite sensitive topic, and the High Court itself already said that they wanted to make it possible for politicians to accept the laws which would basically support such a solution. And the explanation of the court is that when they didn't see it, it was quite it was accepted by them. Of course, opposition, there is a heavy opposition against the acceptance of such a solution. The right-wing religious parties heard or said or immediately proclaimed that they will try to cancel such a solution. But we just have to notice that the support for such a solution was really 8 votes against 1, which was really, when we think of it, it was really massive support in Israel in favor of such a solution. So I would like to now give the opportunity to Rabbi Leonid, and if there were any questions then in the discussion, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Rabbi David. That's wonderful, and particularly finishing with the recognition of progressive convergence in Israel, which both the diaspora communities and progressive Judaism in Israel were campaigning for so long. Because it was almost like an impossible situation when progressive conversions from outside of Israel were recognized, but within Israel they weren't. So that was a very small but a very big win for progressive Judaism, and the repercussions are still heard all over the world. I would like to ask at this point whether Rabbi Isaac, I can see it with us, and would like to add anything to the conversation or to what Rabbi David has said so far. And we also got our colleague here, Rabbi Guy Hall, whether Guy, you would like to add something to the conversation before we swiftly move to Russia and its neighboring countries. And also, if you have any comments or particularly questions, then you can put them in the chat and we will address the questions later after Rabbi Leonid will speak about the way the progressive conversions are done in that part of the world. Yes, no?
I have nothing to add at this moment.
Lovely, thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that, and Rabbi Guy?
I would be interested to hear what our colleague from Russia has to say, but afterwards I may have a question, if that's all right.
That's absolutely.
Thank you.
And I would like to bring now Rabbi Leonid to our conversation.
Yes, Chag Sameach, and hello everyone, and thank you, Rabbi Tanya, for inviting me to this discussion. So I'm representing here the progressive Beit Din of former Soviet Union of 3 countries, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. And now I'm second year in my capacity as the secretary of Beit Din. So I'm a person who looks through the documents, and I'm also the person responsible for different forums and some other boring things which made up bureaucracy, but as it is a legal procedure, so we need to follow rules, and we explain the rules to any person who wishes to convert to Judaism. And what Rabbi Tanya said and Rabbi David told about the rules, general rules of conversion. They are almost the same, I think, in every country, and the same rules apply to the former Soviet Union. We, in fact, have 3 different countries: Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Each country has its own specifics, but the rules are the same. And when I spoke to Rabbi Jackie Tabik about 2 years ago about the rules of the conversion and the mutual recognition of conversion, that talk was very short, because we had only a couple of minutes to agree that we have the same rules, and if a person converted through our Beidin comes to Britain, he or she would be accepted as Jewish in Reform or liberal congregations. So there was no question about that, because we follow the very same rules. If we talk about Israel, we have a long history of recognition of our conversions via State of Israel. It's not done automatically, but there is a special procedure which sometimes changes. As you know how bureaucracy works, they demand some extra documents. So that's all more or less bureaucratic procedures. If you need some examples, I can tell you how the bureaucracy of recognition our conversions in the State of Israel works. But that's more or less technical issues. And if we talk about people who want to convert to Judaism, we have several categories of people, and we mostly work. The most important category for us are people who have the Jewish father, what we call the patrilineal Jews. That's I would say one of our top priorities when we talk about Jewish status, because those people were discriminated in the Soviet times because Russia and in general Soviet Union was and still is a patriarchal society, and identity of a child mostly goes according to the father line, and those people were discriminated in Soviet times. So they were good Jews to be discriminated against. And then when Soviet Union collapsed nearly 30 years ago, and those people would go to a synagogue, and the most of our synagogues are Orthodox or Chabad. When they come to synagogue to discover their Jewish identity and to understand why they were discriminated during Soviet times, they are learning that they are actually not Jewish because they have only Jewish father. Or there are many cases when even the mother is Jewish, but mother is a patrilineal Jew. So they have 75%. I have few examples of such people. 75% of Jewish blood and not recognized as Jewish. And this is one of our major, is it possible to say, a frontier. So we fight for those Jews. That's category number one. The second category is Jewish spouses. So husbands and wives, those who were married to Jews, and when such a family comes to us, we obviously understand the reason why they want to convert. And in first case, we even don't call it conversion. although we follow the rules and we issue conversion certificate, but for those people, we explain that it's actually recognition, official recognition of their Jewish status. So that's one issue. Second issue, non-Jewish spouses, those who wish to grow up children as Jews, and that is very important, that in a family would be one religion and they want to belong to a synagogue. And the third category, those people who come to us as individuals. Some of them might have lost Jewish ancestors. Some don't have any Jewish ancestors and come to Judaism just as one of our matriarchs came, like Ruth, because Ruth never had any Jewish ancestors, but she decided to join Jewish people. So then basically three major categories, and when such a person applies for conversion, we offer such a person some kind of period of adaptation into Jewish community, and the period might last a couple of months, might last longer, depending on such a person, because we are very strange religion as Judaism, and because we don't want everyone to convert to Judaism, so we don't go to underground station and giving the brochures and booklets about Judaism and saying we are a true religion, please join a synagogue. So we don't do this, and when the person with no Jewish connections come to us, we always ask twice or three times, which is actually not a galaha to ask three times, but it's just normal to make some warnings about religion such a person wants to join, because it's not obvious, very obvious choice for person who grew up in Soviet Union or now in Russia with official religion as Russian Orthodox Church. And I always tell to people, please consider twice, three times before you really want to join a synagogue, because it's not a logical, real choice unless you explain it clearly. And sometimes we ask to write a letter explaining why such a person wants to convert to Judaism, because it's not obvious for a person who grew up in Orthodox Christian environment, even if it's just official statistics that 80% of people in Russia belong to Russian Orthodox Church. And if you go to real church, you see that you don't see 80% of population in the churches, but still it's a religion of majority. And I always tell people, please think about religion twice, three times, four times, because a church is just around the corner. Basically, the church, it's more obvious choice for you, unless you explain. And then if we are sure that the person have good reasons to convert to Judaism, and we accept such a person to conversion class, and the class lasts at least for 1 year, and some people it might last longer, but it's not that we artificially prolong the classes. We have some issues, as Rabbi David said, about the current situation, but in general, I think it's more or less clear the rules, what we do in Russia, and what are people we are working with. We're going through, want to go through conversion procedure. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, and I hope everything is clear. Chag Sameach.
Thank you very much. Leonid. That's really interesting, particularly recognition of patrilineal Jews, which is very, very different in the UK and in the liberal Judaism. I think it's a bit different in Reform Judaism, even though they're moving towards recognition of patrilineal Jews as well. But in the UK, we have a case a case recognition. So it's not, the people are not going through the full conversion, but their Jewishness is recognized as long as one of the parents is Jewish and a person were brought up within the Jewish faith. However, when they go in case recognition, people are still given the conversion certificate automatically with the case recognition, simply because if they would like to make Aliyah to Israel, they will need to have it, because otherwise it won't be recognized just as a liberal Jewish acceptance of patrilineal Jews. So I think that's difference in Russian Beit Din and the UK. And Roman Krylov has got a question. If someone is already have Israeli citizenship, according with law of return, should that person collect big pool of documents, or can you send requests to Israeli government or to embassy? Well, Roman, I obviously will let Rabbi Leonid, and I'll bring now Rabbi David as well to the scene to answer that. But I see. So yeah, so I don't know whether you've been here, but Rabbi David was talking about a big victory for progressive Judaism in Israel and recognition of progressive conversions in Israel. And we were talking about this discrepancy of progressive conversions around the world being recognized by the state of Israel, but progressive Judaism within Israel or their conversions were not recognized. And since the 1st of March, it is actually the case. So if you are an Israeli citizen and you've got your documents, you can go to progressive Beit Din, which is, I think, is it led by Rabbi Grigory Kotler, American Rabbi Leonid, and I'm sure they will be able to assist you. I don't think Israel recognizes patrilineal Jews. It recognizes for the Aliyah, so you can make Aliyah as clearly you have. But in order to become recognized by the Orthodox Beit Din, unfortunately, you will have to go through the progressive reform conversion in Israel. And I'm sure that progressive Judaism in Israel will be able to assist you with that. Has anyone got more questions which you can put in chat, or any comments? Because I've got 2 questions. My first question is how progressive conversion is different from Orthodox. How is it different from Orthodox? And the second question, is progressive conversion authentic, or more or less authentic than Orthodox, let's say? I don't know who would like to go first out of my 2 lovely colleagues. So the first question is how progressive conversion is different from Orthodox. A difficult question. I'm so pleased. Rabbi David.
Okay, I'm happy to answer, although I don't consider myself to be an expert in this comparison, because I don't really have the experience from an Orthodox Beit Din, but I can of course say what it seems to be a difference. So I would say that we already talked about it a little bit before, and Rabbi Leonid mentioned that difference between the Giur as itself and also the status recognition for those whose Jewish identity is already in their families, so for patrilineal Jews. So I would say that the Orthodox process, or the process of Orthodox conversion, would usually take these people as somebody totally coming from outside, so somebody non-Jewish, as the Orthodox halacha says. So if somebody is patrilineal for Orthodox Judaism, or I would say that in most cases, that person wouldn't be considered Jewish. In progressive Judaism, it's more complicated, as Rabbi Leonid already mentioned, that we understand and accept that that person has Jewish identity and Jewish memory and so on, and that we need to do these steps, and they are different in each other countries. So I mean, in the UK there is this formal what Rabbi Tanya mentioned, this formal process, but document would still be issued. I would say that in the United States, it wouldn't be even with the document. It would be basically automatic acceptance. In Prague or in Central Europe, there is interview in front of Beit Din, but with the maximum support for those people. Absolutely maximum support, without any, trying to convince that person about another decision or another possibility. So this is very important, how we actually have these cases. And of course, that when somebody comes totally from outside, we want to make sure that it will be okay with their family, that that person won't face any problems. And in these cases, we that process is a little bit, I don't want to say complicated, but it includes more steps, I would say. Whereas, if somebody comes with that background, it has that level of support. But it doesn't mean that those people who come without any Jewish connection, like Ruth, wouldn't be supported. It's just a little bit different regarding the questions we ask and so on, so which are based on different things. And what is one more important thing, I would say that when we do these things, we usually send people to the Beit Din about whom we think that they are already ready. So the issue, the Beit Din and the whole goal there is not to reject the candidate or to reject him a few times and then after that accept them, but to do it when we think that they are not yet ready. We simply don't send them to the Beit Din. And I think that this might be one of the differences. I don't know how it works. I just can't say how it works in other Orthodox Batei Din, and then there may be similar approaches, but I would say that really stress on preparing the candidates properly, and then making sure that there are no obstacles to continue.
Thank you very much, Rabbi David. Rabbi Leonid, have you got anything to add to David Rabbi's point?
Yeah, I can add a few things about few remarks. First is about people who already have Israeli citizenship. It actually forgot to mention when I spoke about our Moscow conversion class that we have quite a significant number of people who are citizens of Israel who want to convert to Judaism, mostly for the sake of children, because they want to be registered in Israel as Jews, and they want their children to be registered as Jews. And obviously, it's a good reason to accept them for conversion class. And we have some minor issues with Israelis because Israelis sometimes pretend that they know everything, especially that they are better Jews than Jews who live in diaspora, because in Israel they speak more fluent Hebrew than we do here in Moscow, in some other countries. But when we start asking them about some basic Jewish knowledge, they sometimes fail. And we say, look, guys, it's not that we want you to suffer from our conversion class, but please come to our classes and fill the gaps in your Jewish education. And also explain them that we understand that you are Jewish and you're part of the Jewish state, but when it comes to Israeli bureaucracy, we need to follow the rules which Israel applies on us when they talk about recognition of conversion, because any conversion should be regarded as conversion, even if a person is a Jewish 75%, so just missing one grandmother, as we say in Russian, нужной бабушки не хватило. The person just missing one very important grandmother, and that makes him or her not Jewish according to the Orthodox point of view. So that's remark number one. And remark number two about Tanya's question about how our conversion is different from Orthodox. I think we put more stress on knowledge, and we have a list of questions about 9 or 10 pages, and some questions are not that easy for people who were converted in Orthodox world. So they say, oh, we thought progressive conversion is very simple, but now I understand that you guys actually ask very tough questions, and you demand lots of Jewish knowledge. And we put different stress on what we think is important in the conversion class. As I call it, not just Shabbat and the Kashrut. It's not only that. Judaism is not just laws of Shabbat and laws of Kashrut, because we have many more issues, and especially with regard to women, because I read what our colleagues in Orthodox synagogue in Moscow demand on women. It's only practical issues of halacha. It's only Shabbat candles, challah, a few other issues, and if you are a woman, so you're not expected to know what is Torah, what is written Torah, what is oral Torah, who wrote Shulchan Aruch. So you're not expected to do this, to know this. So we put more stress on it. And a second issue, if it's authentical, I would say yes. I would say yes, because if you look the history, if you look at very first conversion in our history, the conversion of Ruth, it was also authentical, although she never had any Beidin, and even if it was a Beidin, it was on a very strange, peculiar form on some very interesting place. So it's still regarded as authentic. Otherwise, we would collapse all the history of Jewish people. So that's three remarks which I would make.
Very much, Rabbi Leonid. Rabbi David, please add to the comments by Rabbi Leonid.
I just wanted to very much echo what Rabbi Leonid said. I also think that, first of all, I wanted to say that our understanding of halakha is, of course, reflected in the conversion process, because I might imagine that our Orthodox colleagues might put very big stress on the person accepting the halakha of rather, what we see as rather uniform view. And we very much want our people to develop their own, we call it informed choice. So we want them to create their own, I would call it their own way how they celebrate and how they keep their own observance. And then we don't want them to push them into something. We also accept that it's a way, it's a journey. It's not just one single pointed person develops in, I don't know, going to the synagogue and keeping certain rules. And I think that is all, and it also answers the question if it's authentic or not. There is a very nice case described in the Talmud about a conversion candidate. We all know this story, I'm sure. That's about one conversion candidate who goes to Shammai, to one rabbi or one sage, and actually tells him, make me Jewish while I am standing on one foot. And of course, this Shammai says it's not possible, and he actually kicks him out from his something we would call today office. And then actually he goes to the second rabbi called Hillel, or sage, and actually he tells him, of course I can do it, and tells him, well, don't do to your neighbor what you don't want him to do to you. This is the whole Torah. Go and learn. And I would say that this is something also what happens in our classes. You know, we want people to understand the basic knowledge and also the ethical values of our tradition, with of course the details. But I would say that we can't or we mustn't forget the whole forest for individual trees. And I think that this is the main stress of Jewish tradition, that the reason why we want to have this complex picture and when we want the people to have their own choices, because this is an individual task. You know, there are two commandments in this story. First, there is, understand that this ethical value, your relationship with your neighbor, and going on your own and learning. So it's very important that that person has this intention. And I think that this is what we are trying to stress.
Rabbi Tanya, may I raise an issue as a layman?
Please.
With great respect to my learned and respected Rabbi Tanya, I'm unhappy with the question that is put. Is progressive Judaism authentic, or as it was put in the title, is it kosher? It suggests a lack of confidence. It suggests an inferiority compared with some other form of conversion. And I think it is what the liberal, the progressive authorities have decided upon, have considered, and therefore it is authentic. There may be issues relating to it, but as far as progressive Judaism is concerned, of course it should be, it is authentic. It should be understood as authentic and as kosher and accepted as such, without question, without any sense of inferiority. I've been having my hand up, but I'm obviously on a different page from you, Rabbi, because you've chosen not to ask me. So that's why I interrupted.
I didn't see your hand up, sorry, because it's complicated today to manage technically as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear David, particularly for feeling so strongly about the progressive conversions. That's actually how the three of us and all progressive rabbis feel about it. And I think the focus of today's discussion is actually to bring up the authenticity of progressive conversion and the complexity of the modern Jewish world and the tension between different denominations within Judaism, when some denominations, without being named, consider their particular conversion more kosher than the others. So that's where the question came from, not because we personally question the authenticity.
The question could have been rephrased, not is it kosher, but are there issues relating to it? But thank you. Very
much. No, I love you feeling very passionately about it. And it's actually really interesting. I personally think that the progressive conversion is more authentic to the original conversion, or to sort of our forefathers like Maimonides and the Mishnah and the Talmud rabbis than the current Orthodox conversion. But I just would like to make a point before I'll ask also Rabbi Guy to join our conversation, that our conversion here in the UK just a little bit slightly different, I think, from the European and the Russian conversion for several things. So one, I think we require knowledge, but we don't stress it as much because we focus at Beit Din, we focus on people's commitment. And just as Rabbi David said, unless Rabbi feels that the candidate is ready to go to Beit Din, they wouldn't send them. They won't create a situation when the person is rejected, which also causes so much trauma. So it's not as much as about going through the exam and seeing how much people know, even though it's absolutely crucial, and that's the whole point of the course. But it's more about testing and seeing people's commitment to Judaism, to living Jewish life, and also to our progressive Jewish values. And men and women actually equal, and that's probably that's the major difference from the Orthodox conversion, as Rabbi Lenny pointed out as well. Rabbi Guy, would you like to add something? I can see you unmuted.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I belong to a Beit Din that meets in Italy, and we see candidates from within Italy, and indeed from the rest of Europe, indeed from the rest of the world. We've had candidates from China, from South America. So it's a slightly different setup from the other colleagues present. But one of the anomalies is because we are an independent progressive Beit Din, our more established colleagues within the ERA, the European region, don't always accept our candidates. So I think sometimes, however liberal-minded we like to be, however much we like to think we're Hillel rather than Shammai, it's something I think innate to the nature of rabbis that even liberal rabbis across Europe can behave a little bit like the Orthodox, and there's a kind of spiritual one-upmanship. So I don't think we should give the impression that everything is kind of sweet and organized in the progressive world. It isn't. In fact, just last April, the Italian Federation of Progressive Synagogues, and I think the ERA, put up a statement claiming that they had a monopoly on things in Italy. And I think a number of other rabbis who work in Italy, even just as guests, as visitors, objected to this, and it's had to be taken down. And I hope that they will consult with those of us who are a bit outside the organization and show a bit more respect before putting up such a notice or statement again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Guy. It just shows, you see, that this institutional disagreements, they are just so natural. It's just a natural part of the understanding of certain rules being done in a particular way. And if within the progressive Judaism we cannot agree and have to have this sort of tensions, how much more so within different denominations of Judaism. So that's just part of our natural human existence and learning how to cooperate rather than to work against each other. So hopefully that issue with Italian Beit Din, independent Italian Beit Din, will be resolved. I'm quite aware that now we are going for almost an hour, just as we promised. And if you've got any questions, now is a good time to ask them, because otherwise, even though we've got so many more things to address and very difficult to cover whole conversation about conversions and different aspects of it within even progressive Judaism, we can continue this conversation on a separate platform, or we can do it another time. Has anyone else got questions? I'm sorry, I can't see you all. Or have you got any comments to make? And we've got Rabbi Isaac. I can see you now on my screen. Have you got anything else to add to the conversation, or any comments you would like to make from your personal experience?
No, well, maybe I can just shortly say what the situation is like in Germany. In Germany, we have, as Rabbi David mentioned, we have the Allgemeine Rabbinerkonferenz, the common rabbinical conference, which includes both Reform and conservative rabbis, and a few who would maybe refer to themselves as non-denominational. And all conversions in Germany, all liberal conversions, are done by the Beit Din of this rabbinical conference. And the Beit Din usually sits in Berlin, but it can also assemble in other cities. And our situation is quite similar to what Rabbi Leonid described, because 90% of our communities in Germany consists of immigrants from the former Soviet Union. So we have the same challenges concerning patrilineal Jews who were good enough Jews to be discriminated in the Soviet Union, but not good enough Jews to become members of Orthodox synagogues. And some of them have a strong wish to convert. We use a different term, although the process is basically the same. We used for patrilineal Jews, we use the term Statusklärung, status recognition. Some are very active and want to go this way, but then there are others who we have to explain why it's necessary, because some people say, I've always been Jewish. My father was Jewish. My parents were Holocaust survivors. I was discriminated as a Jew in the Soviet Union. Why do I need to convert to become what I am, what I already am? So, and this is why we use this term Statusklärung, status recognition, to show that we actually recognize that they do have a Jewish identity. And in Germany, there is also the situation that we have, of course, Reform communities, but then we also, the majority of Jewish communities are so-called Einheitsgemeinden, unified communities, which in theory, when it's at the best, it means that different streams of Judaism is under one roof. For example, the Jewish community in Berlin has several synagogues and employ several rabbis, some liberal, some Orthodox, but they all belong to the same community. But in most German communities, even if they call themselves Einheitsgemeinden, they are in reality communities with an Orthodox rabbi, but secular membership, so to speak. And there it is the question whether they recognize our conversions or not. In some communities, the board of the community might admit our converts as members, but the rabbi won't give them aliyot. So I would say in general, our situation is very similar to the situation in Czech Republic and the other Visegrad countries, and also in the countries of the former Soviet Union.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Can I just add one more comment? The question is a Reform conversion authentic or not? One of the arguments used by the Orthodox to disqualify our conversions is that there's no Kabbalat or mitzvot. In a liberal conversion, there's no acceptance of the commandments. I actually wrote my master thesis on this topic, and although Orthodox sometimes claim that they just follow traditional Judaism, what I saw in my research is that this concept of accepting the commandments in the way that the Orthodox understand it today is actually a very new phenomenon. What the Orthodox have done is actually an innovation, a reform of Judaism. There is a very interesting book by Israeli scholars Zvi Zohar and Avi Sagi on this issue, which I strongly recommend.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. How Orthodox Judaism has always defined a new level of conversion within Judaism. As always, it just shows that how we always move, because the authentic Judaism was much more simpler, and who wanted to convert to Judaism for many centuries. So even as late as Maimonides says that you've got to teach some laws, and then you convert someone and do mikveh, and then teach few more laws, and the person is Jewish. It's never been a problem until progressive Judaism came along, and then a new conversion was born. But we don't have time to talk about that, unfortunately. Maybe another time. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and particularly special thank you to my colleagues and friends, Rabbi Leonid from Moscow, Rabbi David from Prague, and big thank you to Rabbi Isaac for joining us all the way from Germany and for your contribution, as well as Rabbi Guy joining us all the way from Nottingham and as well, and all of you for joining us today. Thank you very much, and please see the name of the book before you leave the meeting, from Rabbi Isaac. I don't know how you pronounce his surname, Rabbi Isaac Ashvestad.
Yeah, it's a Norwegian name. It's pronounced Osvestad, but no one in Germany pronounces it correctly or spell it correctly. So Rabbi Isaac is fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And please unmute yourself if you've got any questions or comments. Otherwise, celebration. And hopefully I will see you soon. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for such an interesting debate. It was It was very interesting.
Chag Sameach.
Spasiba.
Bye-bye. Everybody enjoy your cheesecake now.